Hello everyone, this is In-Game Art with a little boxing, little offline product game review. This is the Thane Remastered for the PlayStation 5. To jump right into it, this physical copy here comes with the update version 2.0.0 run on the disc, and I'm happy to say at the time of this video, there were no updates available. Now like always, I play all my games completely offline with an unregistered account, and I didn't experience any massive game-breaking bugs or issues, and as well, I was still unlocking trophies with my unregistered account. Now this isn't my first time playing the Thane game. I did originally play the Thane on PlayStation 2, and I did remember fairly enjoying the experience, surprisingly. I say surprisingly because the Thane is, of course, based on the intellectual property, the movie, the Thane, and oftenly, especially back in the day of like PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 era, games with tie-ins to TV shows, movies, and so forth generally were not the greatest. Now, they all were not bad, but most of them clearly were just riding onto the intellectual property than actually trying to make a good game. And while the Thane back in the day, while again, not the greatest, but it wasn't a bad game. And the Thane Remaster isn't any different. The overall experience was more improved compared to the original. The controls have been more updated, so it's a lot more modernized compared to the original game, which I do remember the original game on PlayStation 2, you could go into control settings and customize the controller a little bit to make it feel as close as you could in modern controls. Well, this remaster was done by Night Dive Studios, so they did enhance graphically as well. It's not just improving the accessibility feature or controls, they did enhance the graphics to certain degrees. Now, it's not like a full-on remake, but they did do some touch-ups. They did improve the lighting, some graphical aesthetics, as well as just the overall presentation has been enhanced a little bit. I do want to point out that the end-credit song has been changed. It's no longer an actual song from a band, it's like a recreation of a classic song from the Thane. So I actually prefer that more than actually have to pay some musician or something like that, a band, to put their song in a game. I prefer something more original and some more tie into the actual game than just some random song from some band. Now, if you're unfamiliar, the Thane is based on a horror movie where a creature came and landed on Earth back in the Arctic, and over time, when humanity finally was starting to become, present in the world, a base was built in the Arctic to do studies and stuff like that, and the spaceship was eventually discovered. Now, the Thane video game takes part as a sequel compared. The movie is, of course, there is the Thane, and then there is the Thane prequel, which is again called the Thane. They're all called the Thane. Very confusing, but they're all supposed to be tied in the story. So this video game is meant to be a sequel to the original movie. Some may love it, some may hate it for that, because there is some contradictions and everything like that in certain dialogues and certain little data points, and the story isn't the greatest. It's your typical military comes across a super weapon or some kind of thing, and they want to try to turn it into a weapon or super weapon, or do some weird stuff with it. Not very original, but it was pretty popular to do that kind of storyline, especially in movies or games, so not too surprising at this design aspect. But what makes the game unique is at the time they were trying to introduce controllable NPCs you can interact with. It has personalities and trust and health and everything you get to command around. And while the game is a bit clunky for this, it does try to introduce a uniqueness of whether you can trust your fellow companion that they're not the Thane pretending to be a human. And I found that very interesting. Not done the greatest because, again, made in PlayStation 2 era, so the abilities to do these kinds of things were limited, but I can see the vision that they were trying to go with, and for the most part, it was rather unique. Now, the interesting thing is that the original game had a bug where people, if you tested them to see if they're the Thane, sometimes next time you transition to another level and that character's still with you, it could randomize, and next thing you know, that next transition, that person that you just tested could be the Thane again. Now, in this remaster, they fixed that bug. I'm a little disappointed on this because that made the original this unique experience that every single time that you interact with that person or the level transition, you didn't fully trust that your blood test was 100% accurate. I actually prefer the original for that, and I wish there was an option to leave that bug in the game, because yeah, it was a bug and it was not intended, but it still was, kept you on nerve. I remember that feeling of like, I tested this person. How is he the Thane? Next time something happened, he just transformed. It was very unique, and I remember being a unique experience in the original game, and I just like, it caught me off guard. Now, before we go into massive stuff, I do want to talk about some little hiccups here and there. The AI partner intelligence isn't the best. Oftenly, if you're not like slowly shepherding them to be able to control where they are and where they're going, they'll get stuck in environments and start running in place in certain areas, so you have to backtrack and figure out where they got stuck, or just make sure that they're not getting pinned down by an enemy, which can sometimes result in a game over, because there's certain missions where you have to go find this particular person and they're actually being attacked. You got to hurry up and save them. Well, there's no indicator of this, and then eventually they'll die and it's a game over. So just be careful of that, because AI partners can be a little iffy on their terms of navigation. Next one is AI shooting. AI will sometimes shoot their own partners, or sometimes even damage themselves, or even shoot you. So you got to be very mindful of that if you stand in front of them or where they're at. I've often found myself just leaving them in positions and just running around by myself, because it just, since there was no longer that fear of after I test them that they might transform, that fear wasn't there anymore. I just felt better just to, okay, I tested you, you're fine, just stay here and I'll take care of everything by myself. Again, it's not done very well, but you could see what they were trying to do, and I can respect that. Now, there was one time an NPC did not have a gun in his hand during a cutscene. He was meant to be holding a flamethrower, and he wasn't. He was just standing there pretending to hold. There was nothing in his hand, but it acted like he had something in his hand. Not the big of a deal, but it was a little funny to see. The next one is that some will find this a bit odd. Sometimes when you transition to a next level, your team members that you've been probably escorting throughout the entire game will eventually just disappear. You won't be able to bring them along in certain transition screens. So it felt a little empty sometimes when you add newer team members, because you feel like, well, okay, these people are just going to disappear again. You couldn't build no attachment with these characters. So that was a little disappointing, because now you couldn't keep those characters with you, transition to another area, and you had to get new teams. It just made it felt like they're just disposable pawns, not really part of the universe and the game. So that's why I was like, well, there could have been some reworking to done on that. I remember that problem in the original game. Next one is that while there is an objective tab that lets you know what you need to do, sometimes it's not the most clear where you need to go, what you need to do, and after you got done doing what you needed to do, sometimes the game doesn't just transition to the next area. Sometimes you got to run to a particular area, and it's not the most clear, so it can be a little frustrating in that area. Next up is that sometimes the game will have a fixed camera angle to show a cinematic shot. While it's kind of cool, the controls of this can be a little wonky, and sometimes computer is like the enemy, or certain things are still happening with this fixed camera angle, so you may be trying to let this fixed camera angle like die down, let it pass by until you can get back to normal controls, but computer could be still, enemies could still be attacking you and interacting with you as you're waiting. It's just a little bit of a bad design, because it takes the control away from the character to make this cool camera shot, but the game's still happening, so you could get you caught in a lot of trouble because you're freaked out by the camera and stuff is still happening. So just keep that in mind about that. Next one is once you beat the game is done. There's no unlockable modes or anything like that, new game mode, new difficulties or anything like that, or at least the one time I beat it, nothing was unlocked. So it's a little disappointing. You beat it, you're done, and that was it. So a little disappointing in that area. Overall, this is a very well done remaster from Night Dive Studio. It's got some improvements, some graphical improvements, some aesthetic improvements, and all and so forth. Very well known from Night Dive Studio, which I'm really appreciative of their work and what they did. I am super shocked and surprised that of all games to do this with, they chose The Thane, which to me, The Thane is one of my most favorite horror movies of all time, and while the game is not really a good sequel and not the greatest game, it is kind of nice to see the universe continued. So I'm a little disappointed that, while I love this game and I'm happy to see this game, I'm a little disappointed that of all games, there's like other games I would probably preferred than the Thane game. I would probably prefer like The Suffering. That one is really, really good, and I would love to see a full, remaster of those games, because if you haven't played The Suffering on PlayStation 2, it's a phenomenal action horror game. But In the end, I'm still happy these kinds of games, these overlooked hidden little gems, that this game is no masterpiece, but for what they were trying to do back then, especially being a movie tie-in game, what they achieved with it was fairly impressive at the time point. In my personal opinion, the thing is a underutilized intellectual property for terms of horror. But for game-wise, why they messed up with this one is that they turned it more into a gun shooty, shoot 'em up kind of style game with some minor little NPC team control interactions. My personal opinion is the thing would make more better as a Telltale game, where you got a more of an interactive movie, where every time you play it, some new character might be the thing, and it's randomized. Even you could be the thing in the main, like in the campaign, that gets randomly chosen, and you do certain dialogue exchanges. Yeah, you can maybe have some very minor combat and interaction, but for the most part, the game should be more about dialogue, because that was the original movie. It wasn't about action-packed or barely even showing a monster for the most part. It's the fear of not knowing who is the monster. Fear of, can you even trust your fellow companions trying to survive this ordeal? To me, that's the overall aesthetic of the thing, not some random shooty up kind of style game. Not to say I don't appreciate what they did here, but it didn't really give that feeling of the thing, because as I said, once they took that bug away and they fixed it where an NPC, a character teammate, will no longer be randomly chosen to be the next thing and to transition to the next level, it got rid of that suspense, because I tested them all, I know they're all safe, and I'm generally, once you do the one test one time, you generally know you're okay. I prefer that bug, because that bug add that extra layer of thing. Yeah, I test them once, but I haven't tested them later. That's just my personal opinion. I mean, is this worth picking up? Well, that's a little hard, because while it's okay, I can't really say you're going to have the greatest of times, but if you're a fan of the movie, or you're a fan of some older horror games of this time point, I could see you can see some enjoyment and see maybe some inspiration, maybe creating some new kind of game or anything like that. Because while the game is fun, it is a little clunky at times, but at least this Night Dive Studio remaster is fairly good and brings it up to par to nowadays games. It's going to really be up to you and how you want to invest into this game. So in the end, thank you all so much for watching. I will provide links down in the description if you're interested in a copy. I recommend it if you want to buy it as a physical copy, because the game is fully up to date. It fully worked with little to no bugs or issues, and overall I had a really good time for what it is. Not the longest game. I think it took me around 6 to 7 hours to beat, and that's me taking my time and really exploring and stuff like that, which a lot of it didn't really need to be done, and some being confused where I needed to go. So in the end, it's really going to be up to you, but I'm still happy we have a physical copy. So again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next unboxing video. Bye-bye!